Today on the newscast, Iran is escalating its drone assault against American forces in Iraq. Will the U.S. retaliate, and what is at stake? Find out next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. 2 days and 2 attempted drone attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq. We told you yesterday, January 3rd, the 2-year anniversary of the death of Iranian terror master Qassem Soleimani, that 2 explosive-packed attack drones were launched at Baghdad International Airport, where U.S. troops are stationed. Well, once again today, Tuesday, January 4th, we had an attempted drone strike against U.S. forces in Iraq, this time targeting the Ain al-Assad base in western Iraq, where again, U.S. troops are housed. Now, of course, Qassem Soleimani was killed by a U.S. drone strike back on January 3rd, 2020, and ever since, the Iranian regime has been breathing threats of revenge. That really came to a head yesterday, not only with a speech by the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, where he vowed revenge unless President Trump is brought to trial for the death of Qassem Soleimani. You can check that out in our archives. We hit on that on yesterday's newscast. But events and speeches around the region by Iran and the leaders of Iran's various proxies like Hezbollah, lauding Qassem Soleimani and again vowing revenge against the United States. And now we have consecutive days with attempted drone attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq. Folks, to me, there has been a low-level drone war of sorts, I guess you could say, over the past several months. The weapon of choice for Iran's Shia militias operating inside Iraq traditionally had been rockets. They had targeted U.S. bases and various Iraqi bases where U.S. troops are stationed with rockets over the past few years. That's one of the reasons that President Trump ordered the elimination of Qassem Soleimani back in January 2020. But the weapon of choice for the Iranian regime in Iraq has shifted to, you guessed it, those attack drones that we have talked so much about here on the newscast over the past several months. Iran steadily building up that drone arsenal. Not only that, sharing the drones and the drone know-how and technology with their proxies around the region, like Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Houthis in Yemen, and yes, those various Iraqi Shia militias, which ultimately answer to the regime in Tehran. So the Iranian regime certainly using the anniversary of the death of Qassem Soleimani, the notorious terror master, as a pretext to kind of up their terror game against the United States. This comes, of course, against the backdrop of nuclear talks in Vienna. And again, we hit on this on yesterday's newscast. Check it out in our archives. Hey, while you're there, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time we post a new update here on the news channel. Every day, Monday through Friday, we are bringing you the Watchman Newscast, and sometimes on the weekends, depending on the news cycle. But Vienna right now, U.S. negotiators, along with negotiators from Britain, France, Germany, China, and Russia, are all gathered together, and they are meeting with their Iranian counterparts, trying to cobble together and revive that disastrous 2015 Iran nuclear deal, which President Trump rightly pulled the United States out of in 2018. One thing to remember here, U.S. negotiators, while they are in Vienna, they are negotiating indirectly with the Iranians. U.S. diplomats are not in the same room with their Iranian counterparts. That pretty much says it all about the effectiveness of these talks from a United States viewpoint. What the Iranian regime is doing in terms of the uptick in drone attacks, not only vengeance for Soleimani and trying to send a message on that level, but again, trying to build leverage in these nuclear talks with the United States and basically saying, if you don't give us what we want, which for Iran is the removal of all U.S. sanctions, which have really hit the Iranian economy and the regime hard, they're demanding that all of those sanctions be removed immediately as a pretext for re-entering that Iran deal. And they're saying, if you don't give us that, If you don't give us what we want, United States, West, world, then you can see a whole lot more of what you saw over the past few days, these attempted drone attacks against the U.S. in Iraq, but even more, we will continue to equip our proxies, that ring of fire that surrounds Israel right now. Perhaps we will spark a major regional war if you do not give us what we want. This is blackmail. This is extortion. The Iranian regime are masters at it. Oh, and by the way, they're also saying, if you don't give us what we want, we will perhaps feel compelled to hit that nuclear threshold and enrich uranium at levels that would enable us to become a nuclear power. And by the way, the U.S. not only should have never re-entered these talks, they should have walked away yesterday when those drones were launched against U.S. personnel. But I digress. Say the U.S. caves and gives the Iranian regime whatever it wants in Vienna, and there is a good chance of that, I'm sad to say. Does anyone watching right now really think that the Iranians will take their foot off the gas and back off? What it will do is empower. Any appeasement of the regime will empower them and embolden them to increase terror even more. And I'm talking in particular about those 2,500 U.S. troops who are still stationed in Iraq. Now, their combat role has ended. They are there now in a, quote, advisory role. But you can bet that the Iranian regime is feeling, or they observed, the Afghanistan effect, and they're saying, wow, that was a disastrous, embarrassing withdrawal for the United States. Perhaps we can duplicate that in Iraq and help push these U.S. soldiers out of that country and essentially remove America from the Middle East altogether. And how can we do that, say the Iranians? Well, we will apply the pressure. And how can we do that, says the Iranian regime? How can we push America out? One way is with an increase in these drone attacks, the constant threat of drones literally hovering over the heads of U.S. personnel in Iraq. Iran has become a drone superpower in the region, folks. I don't say that lightly, and they have put their drone technology at the forefront of any future battle plans in the region. It is a very dangerous situation. The big question now is, will the Biden administration respond to these back-to-back attempted drone attacks against American citizens, American soldiers in Iraq? Rewind to last February 2021 and also late June 2021, the U.S. carried out airstrikes against these Iranian-linked militias along the Iraq-Syria border. Clearly didn't send much of a message ultimately to Iran and its proxies, because as we see, they are at it once again, and the attacks since those airstrikes really haven't abated. The only thing that really happened is, again, the tactics shifted from rockets to more the drone assault by the Iranian regime and its minions. Hey, before I go, I want to tell you about a great company we're partnering with here at the Newscast that can help act as an iron dome for your family online. Canopy is cutting-edge Israeli technology software specifically developed to enable families to enjoy the good of the internet without the bad, and there's plenty of that out there, as we all know. Canopy is an incredible internet filter that detects and blocks explicit content on your kids' devices in real time. And it's the only tool out there that can deter and prevent sexting. Folks, as the father of a teenager and a preteen, I know how challenging it is to raise kids in the digital age and with social media. That's why I'm partnering with Canopy. It's Israeli innovation at work, and I know it will bless your family. Just visit canopy.us/Watchman and use the discount code WATCHMAN15 to get a free 30-day trial and 15% off the price of your Canopy subscription. Hey, you can cover all of the devices in your home for as little as $8 a month, $8. It's a great deal, and your kids are worth it. One more quick programming note before we go. Tomorrow, January 5th, we will have another Watchman Newscast live stream here on our channel between 4 and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to join us live for one solid hour, and be sure to bring your questions for our Q&A session. We're talking all things Middle East, prophetic, and how it affects you no matter where you live. So be sure to join us tomorrow. Until then, thanks for joining us today. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman Newscast episodes every weekday.